Hello and welcome to Dentistry to Business, the Dental CEO podcast where data meets strategy and leadership transforms practices. I am Caroline Bell-Minturn, a proud dental clinic owner, creator of cutting-edge dental analytic systems, and a mentor to ambitious dental professionals like you. This is the show where we dive into the metrics and science of building thriving multi-seven-figure and beyond dental practices. Whether you're looking to master analytics, lead with confidence, or scale your clinic without sacrificing quality, you are in the right place. Let's decode the numbers, unlock your potential, and create a legacy practice that you've always dreamed of. Ready to lead the industry? Let's succeed together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Dentistry to Business. I'm your host, Caroline Bell-Minturn, and I'm excited to dive into a topic that I had quite a few people reach out and want to kind of talk about, chat about, and see what my thoughts and opinions are. So we're going to be talking today about haters, doubt, critics, people who are making comments that ultimately make us feel kind of crummy initially or throughout our career path of starting out to be an entrepreneur. And I know that this is a little near and dear to my heart, as I also, as everyone does when you're starting out, has our own personal doubts, and we kind of have our own insecurities going into entrepreneurship and wondering if this is something we're going to be good at, if this is something that we're going to be able to be successful. You're really kind of putting it out there in front of everybody that you are going to achieve something and try to attain something and go after whatever goal it is that you are being after, whether it is a dental career or a different path in any sort of business. Ultimately, it really is the same sort of direction and feeling when you're starting out, which is nervousness, insecurity. And then when you have these comments made to you from family, friends, or even, people on the internet, the trolls, they can definitely weigh in on making these sort of internal feelings expand and feel in a way that maybe this isn't the right pathway for you. And I want to reassure people that this is absolutely normal. I don't know anybody in any business that hasn't had these feelings of doubt, and I don't know anybody in any business that has not had critics or haters or people put that doubt in their head. I think it is a testament to being able to overcome it and making sure that we know deep down our values and who we are as individuals so that we can be in the moment and be strong and say, this is exactly where I want to be, what I want to do, or take small pauses of reflection to know that ultimately this is our choice and it doesn't matter what anybody else is saying. We have a vision, we have a goal. The things that I kind of want to point out is if you are hitting a point in your career that this is new and fresh, A, it's very normal, but B, it also probably means that you are doing something right. I have come to learn that even in my own family dynamic, whether it's a parent or, a family member, a friend that's fairly close that doesn't really understand, a lot of the time it's coming from a protection. They want to protect you from not succeeding at something. Don't want to see you fail. And a lot of the times it's coming from an insecurity place in them that they're worried for you, or maybe they're concerned that this isn't really anything that they're aware of, and their own belief system is kind of being questioned a little bit. So I have found with myself, even doing some of my branding, it's something that not a lot of people understand, and they don't know why I invest so much time and energy into a mentor, a coach, branding, photo shoots. It may surface level seem very, I guess what the word is, like almost just I don't want to say self-reflective, but maybe a little bit self-absorbed, I would say. Some people are like, I'm worried that you're going to look a certain way because you're doing this. Well, my whole point of doing a brand shoot is to make sure that I'm aligning with the right people. And if that doesn't feel good, or, it attracts haters in a way, those are really kind of repelling people I don't want to work with anyway. So it ultimately is doing its job. And it doesn't need to be something that everybody understands. I've had comments made from my mother-in-law about not liking certain photos on my website, or, my own mother wondering why I'm taking time to go and take a 2-day photo shoot away from my kids, and those types of things. Like, they could internally, it does make me kind of question and say, like, oh, that sucks that somebody that I love and care about is making these comments. But ultimately, I know it's not meant in a malicious way, and I know that it doesn't reflect anything that they truly feel and value about me. They're just trying to be there to be supportive and helpful, and these comments aren't made in a way to make me feel bad, but ultimately they kind of do. So, there's those surface level comments, and then there's also comments that like go past the surface level, and it gets to trolling, and then it gets to people being very critical. And I can say the best piece of advice I was given going into running a business was, do not take advice from anybody doing less than what you're doing, or somebody not doing the same thing. So at first I kind of thought of that as, well, I kind of took it actually as, don't take feedback from other people. And I thought, well, that's a little weird. Like, I kind of want to hear from people who are doing, the job that I'm hopefully training people to do. And I want to listen to, feedback from my team members and things like that. But that's not what this person meant. This person meant, don't take criticism from somebody who's doing less than you. Don't take that to heart, because they haven't walked in those shoes. They haven't been down the path that you're walking, and you ultimately don't really want to take advice from people who haven't done the thing that you're trying to achieve to do. So always have a mentor that you're looking at to say, this is exactly what I want to do, or here's my goal and my vision. This is very similar in alignment to what I want to offer in my company. So with dentistry, it's very difficult to kind of find an office that I look at and that's my inspiration and that's where I pull from. But there's definitely people in the dental world and realm that are doing something similar to what I'm doing, or wanting to offer the same value and the same customer care experience. So I can pull like inspiration from them and ask questions and use those people to lean on as a resource, versus asking somebody who's doing the basics that I'm not wanting to do. And that's okay too. That's not putting down somebody else. It's just a completely different vision, and it's a completely different business plan than what I have. I also can pull from inspiration from other businesses that are outside of dentistry. So we love Disney. So we are trying to amp up our game for customer experience to be similar to a Disney experience. And when a patient comes in and has an issue, a complaint, or a concern, I want my team members to have the autonomy and to have the good vibe in the office to know that if they attempt to make a patient satisfied and happy, there's not going to be a negative implication for them. There might be a conversation about how we would do something differently the next time, but you're not going to be in trouble for trying to satisfy a patient and making sure that their patient experience is the highest level possible. So we're really trying to cultivate that culture. So I pull from inspiration from Disney. I love the way that I feel when I walk into their resorts and their hotels, and I love the customer service experience from the concierge. Those sort of aspects, or going to like a really elevated spa and the services that make me feel very relaxed. Well, what can I bring from those spa experiences back into my practice? So these are the types of inspiration that I try to pull from, and it really does help me remember why I got into doing the business in the first place and what kind of customer experience that I want to have. So I want to take inspiration from people who are doing more, people who have been through the pathway that I'm walking, and then try to drown out some of the noise. Definitely take feedback. There's definitely a difference between feedback and criticism. So feedback is gaining knowledge and insight from maybe your employees, maybe your patient base, maybe a friend or family that have had an experience in your practice. But criticism is somebody just naysaying that they don't like something that you're doing with not any sort of reason why. I love to have the background knowledge of why. So if something didn't feel good for a patient, or for a team member, why? What happened here that we can change, that we can do differently the next time? That's really important to me to figure out what the difference there is between the feedback or somebody just criticizing and saying they don't like something because they want to poop on your parade, basically. So I think it's really important to make sure that we're looking at the difference between what is criticism versus feedback. Another point that I wanted to make is that criticism is a mirror of other people's insecurities often, and it's more a reflection of them than your own worth and your own value. And I think that's really important to understand that often if we've heard, hurt people. And if somebody is really sad inside, that usually comes out as anger. And if somebody is feeling a certain way internally, they might want to try to make somebody else feel that way. It can also bring out an insecurity in people that they're seeing you succeed and elevate, and it makes them feel like they're not doing enough. And that's not a you problem. Our problem isn't to make other people feel good every step that we make. Our job is to hopefully inspire those people to see that it is possible for them. It's not to make them feel negative because we're doing something amazing. I feel like there's a seat at the table for everybody. I especially feel like women in general, I love supporting women businesses. If anybody knows me, I'm a hardcore ride or die for my friends, their businesses, their companies. I'm sharing them on. I'm always hopefully gearing people to also not just because they're my friends, but they usually have amazing products or they are selling an amazing service that I can get behind. And actually, I'm wearing one of my girlfriend's jewelry company's jewelry in this video right now if you're watching it from home. I actually utilize their products in my daily life, and I want to promote those types of people instead of people that are famous actors and that we don't actually know. I think we can all elevate together, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not room for somebody else at that table. So, coming from the perspective that just trying to remind yourself, if somebody is really making you feel negative about something, it probably says more about them than it does about you. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, doesn't mean that it's a scenario where it doesn't sting a little bit, but just reminding ourselves that we have full control over our own emotions and how we react to things, and not kind of feed into that narrative. And sometimes it is a question like, what is it that you are so upset about me doing this? And having that dynamic and that relationship with a friend or a family member to openly converse and not be adversarial about it, but just to ask them, what is it that you're concerned about me doing this? And where's your fear coming from? Because I feel really good about this. I want you to be as excited about this as I am. And ultimately, that can open up a conversation to find out the why behind things. I think people knowing a why is extremely important. It's the way our brains work. We try to process information. And if we can understand where somebody's coming from, it makes us a lot easier to forgive, to move past, to clarify, and to have that good communication effort moving forward. I also kind of believe in embracing controversy and just really standing firm in what you value, what your morals are. This is not about anybody else. You know in your heart what you want out of your business and out of your life, essentially, and nobody else can deliver that to you. This is kind of what I would suggest in that area where you're going to embrace the controversy. I always suggest staying quiet for a while too. Like I share a little bit on social media, but my life is very behind the scenes. I keep my personal stuff, and it's not in an intentional way to like push people out. I just find a very nice quiet bubble that I enjoy living in, and that's my peace of mind. And I know that that's kind of my sanctuary place that my family is in. I can have, I can go out and enjoy an event without posting it all over social media, or go on a vacation without posting it all over social media, because I just don't feel that I have to share every aspect of everything. That's just my values. My values are that that's a private part of my life, and it's a part that makes me feel good. And that's a boundary for me that protects my state of mind so I can show up better for my clients and for my team, and making sure that my office is pushing the boundaries forward in a healthy dynamic because I feel really good. So some people, they have the ability to share online and, have that whole open dialogue of opening the door for their whole life to be kind of picked apart. And I just don't feel the need to do that. Not saying that it's a right or wrong thing. That's just a personal thing from me. So I stand firm on my values in that. And then I can embrace some of the controversy when it comes to maybe a business project or, a business relationship that I have. If somebody has any sort of say about that, I can handle that a little bit more. I don't really want an advice or insight of what other people think about what I do with my family or my children. I've had patients at my practice comment on the fact that we send our children to a private school, and that was a hard decision to figure out what was best for our family dynamic. And a lot of the factors that we weighed out, like both my husband and I went to public schools. We had smaller educational systems that we were in at the time. We felt like the private school was giving them a very similar experience to what we were able to have growing up. And those factors really played a part in it. And I don't feel the need to express or explain myself of where I'm going to send my children to school, because ultimately that's a decision between my husband and myself and our children. But people do want to be involved in these types of conversations, and I just have values around that and say I don't discuss this with patients, but I appreciate your concern of how that may look to somebody else, but I'm not sending my kids to private school because it's a status thing or a look. I'm sending them because I feel like this is what's best for my family. So you have to be able to embrace the controversy, but also set some boundaries and have your values really firm and knowing where you stand and what you believe in. There's definitely, again, a difference between feedback and noise. So like somebody making a comment about my children, to me in any capacity, isn't really feedback. My kids' life and what we do with them, that to me is noise. Anything around that is between, again, and I believe this in any family, what's good for you and your spouse and your children. That's your own dynamic. That's not somebody else to, comment on, unless, of course, there's some level of like neglect or mistreatment. But if your kids are healthy and happy and otherwise, just really happy dynamic of a family, there's no point of taking on feedback of how you're raising your children, and making sure that, again, you're able to say this is noise, not feedback. Or in a business sense, somebody making a comment about maybe a rule that you have in place in your practice or changing things that are going on in your practice. I've had employees before say, we've done this one way, then we made a change, now we're going back to the old way. Yes, that is called trial and error. If we believe that we think something new might be better, we implement, we try it. If it doesn't work, maybe we revert back to the original way that we're doing something. Maybe we try something new again another time. But ultimately, it is our decisions to make as business owners and to logically think things through. We know that we're not going to get things right 100% of the time, and being able to say, like, this is a part of my value. My value and my promise to my team is we will implement, we will do things, but there's never a pressure. If something doesn't fit, we're not fitting a square into a circle here. If this just doesn't fit the way that we're trying to implement and do things, we can maybe pivot and see if it'll fit in a different dynamic, a different way, but we're not married to solutions. We are definitely going to be looking at things in our practice that will hopefully help us evolve, and we need to have an implementation process and time. But there does come a point when you have to say, this is just not working, and we need to figure out a way to make this work, or we need to go back to doing things the original way and see if we can make some adoptions to see if that really was the right way to do things. So being really firm in what that belief is really important, and making sure that we can differentiate between noise and feedback. I honestly, truly feel being mediocre is if you worry about being liked, that is your fastest track to just being mediocre, because you will never make some decision in your business that you feel would jeopardize how people feel about you. And I think a big part of business is risk taking. I think you do have to make these strong decisions. And I also think being a leader shows people we can make choices that maybe seem a little bit scary, but look how well things work out. This is actually a really great time to show our team members we can implement new things and see the success in them, and that builds the courage in your team members to not just do that in the workplace, but to do that in their real life. They're going to see time after time that you're a risk taker and you're trying something outside of the box and you're maybe not fitting into the norm, but at the end of the day, they're seeing this like really positive result. And I think that's really what leadership is about. And entrepreneurship, we're in business to elevate customer experience and our team members' lives. We're not doing it just directly for ourselves, because if we were, we wouldn't be in businesses that were helping people. We would be doing something kind of behind the scenes that's really motivating just for ourselves. I think a big part of working in an industry where we get to touch so many people's lives, whether it's through your patient care or through your employees, family, friends, whoever that may be, we have such a wide range to touch people's lives in so many ways that matter, not just in dentistry, but in doing really good things for patients and people seeing that elevate a patient's life. Or you get to be a role model in a lot of those ways. So I think a fear of being unliked is your fast track to being mediocre, being average. And as a business owner, you cannot just be average. You need to be more, and not in the sense of being an average dental clinic. I mean, being an average leader. We need to show people what's possible. We need to step into a new light that people can say, I watched somebody succeed and trial and error and go through the ringer and end out on top. And if they can do it, I can do it too. And I want to inspire and motivate my team members to really watch that process and be proud of themselves of being a part of it. Nobody wants to be a part of something average and mediocre. Everybody wants to be a part of something that's significant and feels of value to people. And that's what we're delivering. And I think that as owners and business entrepreneurs, we need to realize that it's our responsibility as a leader to adopt and show what is possible to the people that are around us. I feel like for myself, my success story about being unapologetically myself, because I am, anybody who really knows me knows that I'm me, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm not a normal manager in a lot of ways because I am very emotional. I am somebody that I used to think like those were things that maybe were hindrances on how I could operate and run a business. But ultimately, like, I never wanted to change who I was to my core. I always wanted change in the sense of next year I'm going to be a better version of myself. I'm going to be more patient. There might be more things that I want to work on personally to evolve, grow as a human. But I genuinely didn't want to change my core of caring about people and wanting to do good for people. And I really went into this business to give people a lifestyle in dentistry that I wanted for myself as an employee. I wanted to be a game changer in the dental world. That I worked in a bunch of offices, temping in offices. I had one really long-term office that I worked in. I had a good idea of how the average treated, and what I really kind of looked at was, why does somebody not want to do more for these people that are creating their success, that are building their dream, that are pushing the needle forward? And I wanted to be the business and the business owner that really believed in the team members and making sure that they were really a part of the journey and along for the ride. And if they chose to get off that bus at any point in time, wish them well, love. There's no hardship on our end and feeling any certain way about that. It just creates space for the next person who is the right person to be on the bus in that seat. So, I really just wanted to kind of change And I didn't know what level that looked like. I just knew that that's really what I wanted, was to help the employees. And then that quickly turned into transitioning to, when people left, they had to have a reason why they were leaving. And there was a lot of people throughout my course of a short 6 years, I guess 7 years now, that I've been doing this, that I did a lot of really nice things for people. I treated people like better than anybody I've ever worked for in any business. Really cared about them, compassionate, worried about their families, worried about their well-being, worried about a lot of aspects. And, I didn't end up leaving those relationships feeling like it was respected. I had people put me down. I had people talk bad about me. I had people leave my practice and talk bad about my office, talk bad about my team. And I'm looking at them going like, I've just done so much to try to elevate and help. And then I realized like, this isn't about me. I had to come back to realizing like, this is their journey, their experience. They might learn along the way something different, but ultimately it cannot change the core of who I am. And these people that I'm going to give my heart to in this industry, the ones who deserve it will respect it. They will stay. They will be the voice of my practice. They will be the people that I need them to be. And if these other people are acting a certain way outside of who I thought they were because they left, that just means that they were the wrong person filling the seat on my bus. And it created a space for somebody new to take that seat and to adopt and evaluate where things are going in my business. So I think it's really crucial that we can really evaluate who these people are and love on them instead of saying, oh yeah, that's just, an like disgruntled employee, or that's just somebody who's miserable. Oh, that person, they have so much going on. Like there's so many excuses we can make up at why people act this way, but that's just it. Because there is an excuse for these people to act this way, that's probably why they're acting that way. And I can even look back at my time as an employee, and I wish that there had been more why behind a decision. So some of my embarrassing mistakes as an employee and conversations that I've had with my past employers could have been avoided had they have explained things maybe a bit thoroughly. So using these things as maybe a learning lesson as a business owner, did we explain things thoroughly? If we feel good that we can lay our head down on our pillow at night knowing we did the best that we could that day, that's all we can do. And wish them well and hope that, moving forward, maybe some of these life lessons will rear its head and you may one day have a different conversation with that person. But don't take things super personal and do not let it change who you are. I had a manager at my old office, and I remember when she retired, she said, I can finally be myself now. And I thought, how sad. Like, I knew that she meant it in a way of like she was excited. She wanted to like enjoy her retirement. It was kind of like a new turned over leaf. And I thought like, okay, so we all were scared of you for the last 15 years that I worked here. And I think her career was like 30 or 40 years long. And you've been misunderstood. Why approach somebody from a manner that is not you? And like, you don't earn respect because you're scary. You don't earn some place at the table because you feel like you need to be in a masculine way. You earn the place at the table because you're already sitting there. So I don't feel like I need to earn my spot anymore. I think initially I felt that way, and I thought maybe I needed to change some of my deliveries of things or how I took things, and a lot of it was really internal work that I needed to do. But at the end of the day, I have no problem showing up in my business the way I want to show up, because guess what? This is my business and it's me, and my brand is me. And I have to work with clients, I have to work with team members, and I have to work with patients. And I need to be able to show up authentic in every capacity of my life. I need to be a mom. I need to be a wife. And I just don't have time to switch hats. And what I mean switch hats, I mean putting a different hat on because that's now a new persona and a new personality. That's not me. I'm just me all the time. And my hat changes when I'm mom. My hat changes when I'm a business owner, not in the sense of my personality and who I am and my values and my beliefs and how I treat people, but by the job title in that moment. And I think that that is something that if I could encourage people to do, please show up as yourself. And just the amount of stress and the amount of exhaustion that would take off of your plate, not feeling like you have to be a chameleon in all of these different roles in your life, is huge. And it creates a scenario for people to look at you and say, they can do this, I can do this. It's actually encouraging for people to see somebody show up so authentic and realize, this person can be really soft and have a warm heart, but also be a business lady and be a mom, but then also make sure that we're making good business decisions and running a good spreadsheet and making sure that things are, I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I get to wear many hats in the way of what job I get to show up for, but I do not change my values, my core beliefs, and my personality or how I treat people based on those hats. And I think that to me has been probably my biggest lesson to realize, but also one of the most gifted things that I think I have the ability to do. And I think that I don't know how to train that in people, but I can encourage people to just show up authentically. And that's why I am unapologetically successful in my businesses, and I can balance so much. I think it takes a big weight off of my shoulders. I do believe that if there's conflict and controversy, that means you're growing. Any roadblock I've hit in any of my careers, my businesses, my personal relationships, I've always grown from. I look back on those scenarios, and as much as I hate that horrible things have happened or, friendships lost or whatever it may be, I can look back and say, thank God that this happened, because I am now a completely different person. I show up in a different way. I have the knowledge to make better decisions. I have better reflecting tools. I might be more guarded in a scenario that I otherwise didn't have a boundary in. And I feel like all of these things, when we look at conflict or being controversial in any sort of aspect, it is a growing tool, and we need to use it like a growing tool and reflect and say, what is it that I'm learning from this, and how can I do something differently next time? Or maybe this is a scenario of placing boundaries. I don't have the proper boundary in place. I'm getting a lot of pushback here. I need to stay quiet next time until I'm ready to roll this out, because I know I want to roll this out. And sometimes I feel like staying quiet is the best way to do it, so you don't have a lot of opinions and judgment coming in. Just do things. And then when you're ready and you have all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed, this is what we're doing and how we're doing it. And people will adopt it a lot easier. They'll understand it because they understand the backstory and the why behind it. They see that there's a plan in place. If you just throw, an idea out there to your team and say, I'm thinking of doing this, they're going to be like, no, change, bad, status quo, good. I don't think that we're going to be able to do this because of X, Y, Z. But if you've already went through the process and said, here's what we're doing, here's how we're implementing it, here's where I could see there being issues, and these are the solutions that I have in place, or let's see what issues come up and we will create solutions to put into place, there's a lot easier dynamic for your team to get on board and to be feeling that they're a part of something versus being told that they have to be drawn into something and feeling disgruntled about it. I find most of my employees really deal a lot easier with change if I'm giving them solutions, I'm giving them a pre-approached plan in place, and they know that they have the support and they know that I'm there for them. So that's kind of my tidbit. If you are hitting a conflict or controversy in any way, you're probably growing, and this is probably going to be a stepping stone to the next level of where you want to be. So embrace, take that moment, because I always give myself a moment to say, I can be upset about this for, a day, and then I'm not worrying about this anymore. That really works well for me to kind of set a timeline of how long I'm going to dwell on something, essentially, and then I cut it off. And it's like, now this is just me repeating a story in my own head, and I'm not actually creating solutions to whatever problem it is we're running into. Be prepared to ruffle feathers. I don't think there's really anything in life that's, going to be perfect. We're always going to ruffle a feather, whether we are ruffling feathers because we're doing something in business or we're doing something in our personal life. I think people are always going to have opinions about us, and we have to really like ourselves. So at the end of the day, make decisions that's good for you. If you ruffle a few feathers along the way that you feel, that's okay. I can lay my head down at night. I'm not hurting anybody. I am trying to do the best that I possibly can for other people and myself and my family. And you feel good about those decisions. Don't fret on worrying about other people and ruffling their feathers, because I think, again, it comes back to a testament of who they are as people. Maybe this is shadowing something in them. It's a little bit of shadow work, and something that you're doing is triggering in them. Why? That's something they need to worry about. And that's not something that you need to worry about necessarily, unless it's a team member and you need to sit down and be like, what is bothering you about this, or a really close family member, things like that. Like, the scenarios are always so different on what this is going to look like depending on who the person is. If it's a stranger on the internet, like, bless and block. My husband and I have a little bit of an age gap, and initially that seemed to be an issue for people. Anybody who didn't know me, because everybody who knew me is like, I knew you'd end up with somebody older. It's just, I've always just been kind of mature for my age, and I really liked the company. A lot of my older girlfriends were older than me by like 10, 15 years. I liked hanging out with an older crowd. And so none of my people in my inner circle or family were shocked, surprised, or had any negative comments to make, but the internet did. And I just block and blast. Like, okay, cool. You have an issue with an age gap about two people that you know nothing about. You want to make a comment that is intended to hurt somebody. That says a lot more about you. And block and blast, because they're obviously hurting. So depending on what that person and what capacity in their life they are, don't worry so much about people that don't really matter. And then the ones that do matter, they will come around. There might be scenarios in your life that are very similar to mine. My family, nobody's in the dental world. Nobody really understands, me having clients. Nobody understands my business, what I do in my business, or what my husband does. A lot of people really confuse the fact that my husband's a dentist, that it must be his office and I just work there. That's something that used to bug me, because I'm like, I'm doing so much. Like, why do people not see this? But at the end of the day now, like, it doesn't bother me. I feel like I don't need that external validation. Like, I know who does what in our business. I know what role I show up in. I know what role he shows up in. My team mostly knows kind of what that looks like. My reps that we deal with, they typically deal with me knowing that I'm doing all the behind scene. And it doesn't mean that one person doing the business side, which is the side that I primarily run, is like a better owner or knows more or is superior. We're co-founders. We work cohesively together. We show up together. We're a team. And anybody else's thoughts and opinions on that at this point doesn't bother me. But I would be lying if I said that didn't. That bothered me for a very long time. And I had to kind of dig inward and figure out where that was coming from. So also doing some self-reflection of where these things like really hit you, and figuring out what those triggering components are, and finding out why, what is going on within you that, maybe that insecurity is there because of a past experience that you need to explore. And that's going to help you grow and not have these things affect you in the future. But yeah, clear values definitely repel the wrong types of people. So making sure that your values that you stand very firm in, don't be worried about it creating a little bit of a barrier for you as a protection mechanism to repel the clients or the patients or the team members that otherwise you don't really want to work with. I feel like that's a huge component in my business. I show up being authentically me. I don't want to brand myself as being, somebody who shows up in a masculine setting with like not my hair and makeup done and like fitting in as one of the boys, because like that's not me. I'm very girly. I'm very feminine, but I'm also really intelligent, and I'm also somebody who has a business, and I also am somebody who can bring something to the table. So if you're willing to look past the fact that I'm a female, because I am, then I'm happy to work with you and to help you succeed. But, if that's something that's a hard kind of turn off of wanting to work with me, I'm really not the right person for you to align with anyway. So I think some of that branding needs to be intentional, because it will repel the people that are not meant to be in your inner circle to work with. And from like a family dynamic place, this is where a lot of people I think struggle, because they have family or very close friends who can't get on board with what they're wanting to do. And my advice to you is this. I have a family who nobody's in the dental world. I was the first person in my immediate family to do post-secondary education. I think I'm the first person in my family to do post-secondary education overall. But regardless, I was the first person to kind of go on and do something in a scholastic environment to create a new life for myself. And how can they understand that if they've never experienced it? So coming from a place of, do they support me? Absolutely. But has there been some areas where they have to kind of look at it, or I have to kind of look at it as they don't really know what I'm going through, or they don't really know what this looks like or feels like for me, and they're trying to give the best advice that they possibly can. I have to understand that that's probably not my go-to people to ask for advice. I have an aunt of mine who runs a very successful company with her late husband, and that's somebody that I've leaned on for a couple of support and just said, I'm running into this. I know you've run a business for a long time. Is this something you're experienced in? And I really value that feedback. If I go into a room, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be somebody that I can be in a room and I'm learning. I don't want to be the person always being in the room giving the lecture. As much as I love teaching, I love supporting, I love showing up for my dental people, I love walking into a room and just asking myself, what can I learn from this person, and what experience do they have that maybe I'm going to walk into in the future, or that I'm currently going through that they've experienced, and kind of getting to know them. I think that that's kind of this sweet secret sauce, and making the criticism almost a reward. It's, taking some of that hate, taking some of that criticism, that doubt people have, and then getting really inquisitive about it. What is it about this that somebody is so upset about? And is this something that aligns with my values, that I'm going to continue to do it? B, do they have a point? And maybe I need to look at this as feedback versus criticism, because we don't want to just be a rubber ball and have everything bouncing off of us. Because sometimes people do have some interesting ideas, or maybe they can foresee something that we otherwise couldn't. Definitely taking into consideration that. But if this is genuine hater criticism, not necessarily doubt, but negative things to try to make us feel crummy, just go inward and just say, why is this bugging me? Because at the end of the day, block, bless, and if it's still wearing on you, because we're human and this stuff does, I think that that's definitely an area that they're showing you. This is an area we can grow, we can evolve, we can toughen up, we can have a boundary in place, we can do something different to make sure that this negative experience doesn't keep rearing its head over and over and wear us down. I think entrepreneurship as a whole is almost built to wean out people who are not prepared for it. So going into entrepreneurship, I was extremely naive. I thought it was going to be a completely different situation. I thought we would just run this amazing dental clinic. We'd offer our employees amazing incentives. They'd want to work for us. So everything would just go tickety-boo because we treat them really well. And what I wasn't accounting for is everybody comes from somewhere, and not all personal dynamics in humans are going to align in the right ways that you need them to. And this was a huge growing curve for me early on, especially. And I had a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of tears, a lot of heartache over individuals, because I was carrying, I don't want to say too much, because again, I don't want to revert back and say be inauthentic. I was very authentic and I wore my heart on my sleeve, but now I have boundaries. Now I have been able to put a boundary in place and still respect my employees, still treat them extremely well, still cheer them on, still feel all of those great things about them. But there's a boundary in place that's going to say, hey, Caroline, remember, this is not your best friend. This is not your sister. This is not somebody that is a family member. These are complete strangers that they can gain something out of you as an employer, where, and vice versa. Of course, we hire employees because it's benefiting the business. But from like a personal sense, they can definitely gain more having a personal relationship with me than I can having a personal relationship with them, because I've already walked in that path. I've already been the employee. I've already done all of those types of things. So from a business perspective, I can learn from them in terms of feedback. I can learn maybe some personality things that I think is really a great personality trait that I would love to learn more about. But ultimately, in terms of business, I've already walked that path. So they can learn a lot more from me in the sense of my experiences, because I've probably had a few more experiences under my belt and a few more years under my belt in that nature. So the friendship in those areas, when I say friendship, like I got too involved in having relationships that I thought were friendships with employees. And as much as that's okay, because it is a workplace, we do work cohesively. But again, just remembering these people are looking at you as a boss. And I was looking at it as they think of me as a friend, not necessarily just a boss. And I've had, sorry, my dog, I don't know if anybody can hear my dog's jumping around in his toy bed. I've had people who really have burned my heart in the way that I thought that we had this close friendship. They no longer work for my business, and then they are gone. I don't hear from them ever again. They never check in. They, used to show up to my kids' birthday parties, and now they're nowhere to be found because they are not an employee at my practice. And I just think those types of things, like, again, lesson learned. Maybe I did, again, wear my heart on my sleeve too much initially in those types of areas. But had I have not experienced it, I wouldn't have known to place those boundaries, because as much as my husband is very logical and he would say these things to me, I was like, yeah, but they're different, or they're not like that, or we have to learn things on our own and in our own timing. And I think that all of these things build us resilience as an entrepreneur. And as much as we can just look ahead and look forward and have faith that things are going to work out, I think that that's where the success lies. And I think that we need to remind ourselves that, it's okay to give ourselves grace when we make errors, and we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to show up perfectly all the time, even though the expectation from everyone around us is that we need to be able to say, like, I am not a perfect human, and I made an error and I'm sorry, or I made an error and this was a bad decision, or, just be able to have that reflection. And it also shows your team members that that's okay for them to do that too. They make a mistake. They don't need to come in with 50 excuses of why the mistake was made and where the error went. They need to come in and say, hey, I messed up here. This was what happened. And you know what? Moving forward next time, I'm not going to do that again. I think that we could all agree that that's what we would wish upon all of our employees. If we know that there's going to be errors made, that they own it, they have the accountability, they have the professionalism, and we have to show up as owners and as leaders in that nature to not say, well, I'm perfect, so I don't make mistakes, that's so-and-so's fault, or I'm perfect, I don't make mistakes, so that person left because of something I didn't do, even though they're telling me that's why they left, or whatever the reason may be. But ultimately, where I want to end this with for you guys is that no matter what you do in life, you will have people talk about you. No matter what you do in life, that you will run into some situation that there's going to be controversy, some situation that people may not like you. You're going to end up in some situation, no matter what you do, you will not please everybody. And I just want to kind of reassure you that this is a very normal scenario to be heightened and amplified when you are an entrepreneur, because you have team members who are reflecting and projecting onto you. You also have family, friends, and people in your life that are doing the same thing. And this can be really an area that gets us bogged down. And if you can push through it and get to the other side of whatever that is, I can promise you, because I've been there, it is so rewarding to just be able to sit back and just be comfortable with the decisions you're making and knowing where you're standing in a business and knowing that you're doing things for the right reasons, and the noise gets quieter. And even if, there's haters online, like I said, block, bless. If there's haters in your community, quiet the noise internally and send them some love. But ultimately, just remember, it says a lot more about them than it does you. Nobody doing more than you is going to turn around and criticize what you're doing because they've been there. They've experienced what you're experiencing. Nobody is ever going to turn around and poke fun or be mean or hurtful intentionally to somebody who's just a few years behind where they just were. I feel that way in my business. There's people that I work with that they've had businesses for 25, 30 plus years. And I'm learning from them just as much as they're learning from me. And I might have the systems and the tools and the resources and be able to explain something, but they're teaching me different things that I'm going to probably walk down this path in another 15, 20 years. So just know that these are people around you making noise that probably haven't had the experiences that you've had, and they just don't understand what it's about. And we can be very critical in areas that we don't know things about. And I look at things happen online to celebrities and people making comments about them. And I think, you don't even know these people. Like, how weird is it that we're making comments about people's relationships or what they're wearing or how they're showing up to a gas station? And it's like, they're just living normal life. Anyways, to not rant on and on about this, please just know that you are not alone. Everybody out there has some sort of controversy in their life, and you have to do what's good for you, live your life based on your values. And I love you, and send this to anybody that you feel needs this episode. And I will see you next week. Thanks so much for stopping by. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Dentistry to Business. If today's episode sparked an idea or inspired you, don't forget to share with your team or fellow dental leader. Let's keep elevating the business of dentistry together. For more insights, resources, and updates, follow me on Instagram at CarolineBellMintern and contact me and find my services at www.carolinebellmintern.com. That's www.carolinebellmintern.com. Until next time, keep leading with data and driving your practice forward. Bye.